Greetings, everybody. This is David Avocado Wolfe. Been a long time since I posted here on YouTube. Been traveling, just drove across the corner of the North American continent from Edmonton all the way to the San Francisco Bay Area to meet my friend Jeffrey Smith here, the Institute for Responsible Technology. Without this man's work, we would not have gotten those judgments against Monsanto for their abuse of the chemicals that they've been using and how that's affecting people, in particular causing certain types of cancers. So this man has been very strongly responsible, in large part responsible, to the fight against the GMO movement and the GMO agenda, I would say. With no further ado, Jeffrey Smith, go for it.
Well, first of all, having David in my home, I'm like, this is exciting, thank you. I wanted, a lot of people may know about the problems with GMOs in the past. But don't stop listening, because you're about to hear that the new GMOs are far worse.
Oh, geez.
And so I can go over how RNA interference might reprogram our DNA if we happen to get the spray on us or we eat the genetically engineered apple or potato that are already out there. I could talk about the new gene drives, the new mosquito or the new insects that can actually plant viruses into crops to do genetic engineering in the field, or the
whoa.
But I'll get to that. I'll get to that. We'll play that in just a second.
Okay.
The biggest issue, the thing that I want to make sure that everyone is aware of, is that we now have a very cheap, very easy technology, gene editing. We have. And this is like an inevitable time in human civilization where we can manipulate DNA so easily and so cheaply. And the question is, how have we gotten to the moral level? How have we gotten to the social responsibility level? At the same time, we have these irreversible tools. I say irreversible because when you release GMOs into the environment, you cannot clean up the corrupted gene pool. It is there for as long as that species exists. Once it starts to reproduce, we can't go in and pull out. We can't purify the corn genome already from
Right,
the
or papaya. The papaya is notorious as well.
It's gone. Not gone. It's just that
it's
portion
corrupted.
Of it.
Yeah,
a portion of it. So the problem is that the most common result of genetic engineering is surprise side effects, right?
Jeez.
So now you take that and you realize you have artificial intelligence running robotics in laboratories that can create hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of GMOs. And they want to customize genetically engineered microbiomes per farm and based on soil tests. They have the capacity now with the tens of thousands of laboratories that can do things like CRISPR gene editing to basically replace nature.
Jeez.
To eliminate the products of the billions of years of evolution, so that when we pass on this world to our future generations, we're passing on not the nature of nature, but the nature of laboratory processes whose number one result is surprise side effects.
This is a mind-blowing future for us all. Now, you're dealing with this through the Institute of Responsible Technology,
That's right.
which is a nonprofit.
That's right.
So I do want to mention that I'll put the links below for the Institute for Responsible Technology. Please volunteer, donate, definitely donate to the cause, because we've been battling these GMO maniacs. Essentially, when somebody's running ahead with the technology and there's no social integrity, there's no thinking about, hey, what's the effect 100 years down the road? We're going to have problems. And where do you think this is heading? I mean, I just got to ask you
Well,
that.
here's the thing. If we don't stop it, it might be stopped by cataclysm or catastrophe. For example, in the early 1990s, there was a professor, Elaine Ingham, whose graduate student did a study on genetically engineered bacteria that was about to be released outdoors. And the concept sounds great. It sounds enlightening. Let's make the farmers in North America self-sufficient by giving them bacteria. It's Klebsiella planticula, and give them the bacteria that's genetically engineered. They can mix the farm stubble instead of burning it, turn it to alcohol, run their tractors, take the sludge afterwards and spread it on the field for fertilizer. Great. So let's give them homemade alcohol for fuels from their own garbage. They were going to do a test. And this graduate student says, well, let me just do one test before. So he spreads the sludge on soil, grows wheat, and after a very short period of time, the alcohol that's still being produced turns the wheat and the roots to sludge, just green slime. Now,
Oh, no.
let's put a little
Okay,
bookmark
okay,
on that one, David.
okay.
Turning into slime. Fast forward. Elaine Ingham gets approached by someone from the EPA.
I know Elaine Ingham's name.
Yeah, she does.
She was the compostee woman.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Whoa, yeah, from Harvard.
Well, she may have gone to Harvard. She was a professor at Oregon State.
Yep.
And got pushed out because of her position on GMOs. That's another story.
Okay.
But she was approached by someone from the EPA who said they genetically engineered bacteria for nitrogen fixing or producing and released it in one point just to see how far it spread. And they found it in all the 11-mile away monitoring stations fairly soon, but then they kept monitoring, and then they found it around the Earth. It had spread around the planet within a few years. Now, this makes sense.
That's so crazy.
This makes sense because bacteria travels, but it also swaps genes. So it's possible that it's not the bacteria that they're finding, it's the genes that they're finding that are now incorporated in similar bacteria. Now let's put the two together. What would have happened?
This is Frankenstein stuff.
This is so Frankenstein stuff. What would have happened if they hadn't, 2 weeks before this test, gotten the feedback that, oh, guess what? This bacteria renders soil infertile. Because you can't grow anything on it because it turns the roots to it kills it with the alcohol. It'll convert the roots to alcohol. And the alcohol will poison other things. And it was about to be released. And what would have happened if it spread? Can we go in there and try and call it back? Do we have a program to turn it off? No.
So that, yeah, I see what you're saying by catastrophe. So we've been basically flirting with disasters all along.
There's another one. In the late 80s, there was they took a Pseudomonas syringae, which is a bacteria which turns water molecules into crystals or snow at higher temperatures than normal. And
Okay, so you could blow snow like in a snow blower at a warmer temperature, for example.
Actually, they make snow with it.
Okay,
For the snow makers. It's also in the air, so that it helps condense and create clouds. It's found on crops, and it causes death to certain crops because it creates the frost at higher temperatures. So this was a brilliant idea. Let's protect strawberries. Let's take that syringae, the Pseudomonas syringae, and change it so that it doesn't do its job. And let's spread that on strawberries. And so the strawberry, it'll protect because normally it'll overpower and outpopulate the normal varieties. So they spread it, and the court said, no, you can't because it can actually render weeds also unkillable at frost, and it could create superweeds. So they had to incinerate the fields. Now we know, 30 years later, now we know that it could have possibly altered the weather patterns on the planet. Because if it had displaced the normal Pseudomonas syringae, these are ifs, but still potential, if it had a survival advantage and spread around the planet and was airborne, as it is over California here, that causes the condensation of clouds and rain from the west, it could have changed the entire weather patterns on the planet.
That's so crazy.
Now, these are just two types of bacteria that were almost released. Now we have a company that's going to be releasing bacteria to create nitrogen in the soil for North American farmers in 2020. Now, another example here is we know that genes can be swapped between bacteria. What happens if it gets into our bodies? What happens if it spreads to other bacteria and creates too much nitrogen and ends up in the marine biology?
Right, yeah.
And creates nitrogen.
And chokes them out with nitrates.
And what are you going to do? So now we get back to the existential threat. I went to 6 different conferences where I spoke in the last, say, 2 months, and I asked the audiences, what's worse, climate change for the planet, climate change or GMOs? And every single one, and I was surprised by this,
said climate change.
GMOs. For the planetary survival. I know!
People are waking up.
I know! And the thing is, in 5 of those 6, I haven't said anything. It was the first question I asked. And it was like at the Soil Not Oil conference, which is about climate change, and it was at the Pioneers conference, and it was all these things. Sometimes, one time I played my 3-minute video, which you can watch at protectnaturenow.com.
I'll put the link below. I'll put the link below.
It's right there. It's right there.
Check it out. And
It's
by
right
the
there.
way, Institute for Responsible Technology. I think we'll hold it at that. That's a lot to think about if you're listening to this while driving your car, or if you wanted to have a little
Stop gripping the wheel,
Yeah.
take a deep breath, breathe.
And maybe go back and listen again, because we are skirting with disaster with these GMOs, and that's why we've got to support Jeffrey Smith and the Institute of Responsible Technology to lobby on our behalf to avoid what could be catastrophes. It sounds like we've already avoided too, and that's just what we know about.
Right. And this is one of the main things that we're doing now is we're organizing a global campaign to alert people, to sound the alarm on this issue. You see, it's a wild west out there. Australia just eliminated any regulatory requirements for gene-edited animals, plants, and microorganisms.
That's so crazy.
So you can go there and release GM bacteria all you want. You have to tell the government. It can travel all around the planet. And no one is thinking about this global existential threat. Well, we are, and we want everyone to think about it soon. So if you could contribute to us, that's where your money will go to save the planet. It's just one small planet, but it's probably important.
It's probably important. All right, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, cheers.